Well, hello, and welcome once again to The Average Missionary. That's me, and hopefully you as well. And as always, when we get together, we prepare to share. That's what this is all about. And I want to get right into it because in the last episode, I gave you starting to work into what I call conversational integrity points, things that keep the conversation moving along, keep it on the right track, um, and continue the engagement between you and the person that you're wanting to share the truth with. So, and I gave you a scenario, and we will be running through some different scenarios. And as I said before, we might come across a few that where it's done badly, and hey, it happens. But we learn from everything, and I really believe, and this is something I'll talk about in a future episode. I really believe that we should be trying to do this, work this, get skilled if you're not already, and of course we can always continue to build our skill set as a ambassador for the kingdom, as a missionary, as a witness. It's something that we can continue to grow in. And I'm thankful for all the opportunities I've had and all the things that I've learned along the way. And I want to be able to even more so grow in my ability to relate to different people with different, coming from different places and subjects and all. And uh, just being able to be have some versatility with who I'm talking to and how I'm expressing the truth. He that wins souls is wise. And it's not just wise to win souls, but we need to have wisdom in order to win souls. And that's what this is all about, trying to talk about different things that are specifically for the probably greatest role that we play in this world, other than the ones that we play towards our families and towards each other in the body of Christ, is our witness of Christ to this world. And so I want to get right into it. I gave you the scenario last time. It was one of my early uh, encounters with someone who I really felt had so much more on the ball intellectually than I did. Um, yeah, both his mother and father were professors, university professors, and he was a super intelligent guy working with me on a landscape crew. I introduced you to Robert, Rob for short, and I took you into what began to be our conversation. And I want to go into that a little bit more now. Some of the principles that I kind of learned on the fly right then, and some things I had already prepared myself with, but it carried on from this conversation to many others after that, and even till today. And so I told you I was going to bring out three questions, and these three questions I believe are essential questions. In some way, shape, or form, you don't have to say it with the exact words, but it's okay to. But you don't have to use these exact words, but in some way you want to be able to ask these kinds of questions. Because these three questions are able to continue the conversation and to keep things on track. And so I want to introduce you to these questions now. The first question that we will use in order to engage in conversation is, what do you mean by that? Now, you always want to be careful how you ask the questions. You don't want to be in any way offensive or adversarial when you ask these questions. You don't want to say, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, sometimes you may feel like that depending on where a person is at. But ultimately, you want to be able to just ask the question, well, if you don't mind me asking, what do you mean by that? What specifically? I want to make sure I understand. You can comment on that question or preface that question with something like I did with Rob. If you go back to the previous episode when I said to Rob, "Hey, I don't want to assume anything because I hate it when people do that to me. So I don't want to assume what you mean. So could you explain that to me a little better so I know exactly what you mean by that?" This is a way to keep the conversation going and to be able to get together on the same page. So one of the main questions, the first one is, what do you mean by that? Ask it as often as you need to. You can change up the wording, but continue to ask that question as often as you need to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, that we're doing this and not this. The second question, once a person has explained what they mean and you're clear, and you know when you know that you're clear on what someone is saying, when you can give it back to them in your own words. Now, this is one principle of communication that I've learned that is very, very effective, especially for letting a person know that you heard them and you understood them. When you can say, okay, so let me make sure I got this, and then you put it in your own words, and that person says, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Well, now we know. I understand you, and we can discuss what you are talking about because now you know I understand. And I know I understand. No assumptions. All right, so that first one is, what do you mean by that? The second one is, and how did you come to that? Question number 2. You can say it in your own words, whatever, but basically what you're asking is, how did you come to that? I'm asking to find out what your process was. Now, this can be for a couple different reasons. One, of course, it continues to engage the conversation. It actually puts the other person in the place of needing to give a rationale for what they're saying. Because I don't know if you realize it, but people, me included, people just make statements. and a lot of times people make statements and thinking that, well, that's enough. I made the statement and, well, it should be believed because I made it. But making statements is just that. It's just making a statement. But that doesn't make it true. And so when someone's making a statement as though it is a truth claim, then it's okay for you to ask them how they arrived at that truth, so-called. What process did they go through? What mental reasoning, or how did they put this together to arrive at that, to the place where they would feel comfortable proclaiming it as the truth? And so you, once again, in a very respectful manner, but once you're sure you understand, and they're sure you understand, now you take it a step further by asking question number 2. And how did you come to that? How did you arrive at that? Because now I want you to give me the rationale for it. What's the process behind it? And in that, many times, the problem in their belief surfaces. The cracks in their thought process surfaces. If there's somewhere where they're being irrational, it comes to the surface. Because when a person has to not only, it doesn't only make a statement, but now they have to give a qualification for it, that changes everything. And that's where many times you'll find a lot of the good discussion comes from. And question number 3, once you have heard their rationale, it many times will give you a way to approach them with the truth. And so now you would say, have you considered, and usually I would preface that by saying, well, if you don't mind, let me ask you, because I'm asking for permission to share. If you don't mind, let me ask you, have you considered? And then you put out what you want to put out. Now you see how far down your presentation is. because you've given time to make sure you're addressing the right thing and make sure you understand where they're coming from with their rationale, whether it is rational or not. And then you're going to present based on the information you've gotten from them. Your conversation now is going to be actually addressing theirs. Instead of you just coming on and just, imposing, you're actually addressing the things that they've said. The things that they've put on the table are the things that you're discussing. But now you're doing it from the standpoint of truth. So these 3 questions are powerful, very powerful. What do you mean by that? How did you arrive at that? And have you considered? Because now you're asking, is this something you've ever given thought to? If not, it might be good if you did. And you can tell them why based on what they've already said. All right? Those are powerful. And I'm not done with this. I just want to put this out to you now. Just make this real short and sweet. But you think about that. Think about how many conversations you may have had with loved ones on other issues other than the gospel, where these 3 questions might have been helpful. It's a good way to keep the conversation going. And I want to say this at the end. This actually does, as you can see, in the conversation between Rob and I, the first thing I was doing was seeking clarity. And that's why, what do you mean when you say God? That was very important. And I'll go over more of that conversation in the next episode where these points will come in, and you'll see how a defense of the true biblical faith was able to come forth in our conversation. But these 3 questions actually do 2 things. It handles conversational integrity issue number 1. It handles seeking clarity. And number 2, it shows respect. That's a very important one. And I know we spoke about that in the very beginning in the fundamentals that we talked about in the first 3 videos. But now this is what showing respect looks like. This is how you actually do it. It's one thing to have the concept that I need to, but this is how you do it. It's very hard for a person to feel disrespected when you are actually being inquisitive about where they're coming from. And you're doing it in a very gentle way, but you're asking the questions. So you have these 3 questions, and it hits on these 2 points of conversational integrity. And with this, moving forward like this, you could do this over and over and over and over again throughout the conversation, no matter how long the conversation may go. Following this kind of a pattern, knowing how to work it in, and being comfortable with asking questions is one of the best things that you can do for your witness. All right? So hopefully that was helpful to you. We'll get some more mileage out of Rob on the next episode. And I thank you for your time, because I believe that we redeem the time, because the days are evil and we're the light. All right, God bless you as you go.